Hi everyone, I'm Zach Reinhardt. I need to trim my beard, and I'm here to review the new Taupe record, Coelenterazine. The Taupe is a four-piece indie rock band with an affinity for some shoegaze and some psychedelic elements within their music. And Coelenterazine, I had to look this up, is a molecule that occurs within bioluminescent organisms that, it glows. What that has to do with the record, I have no idea. Now, the Taupe is not a band that I am super familiar with. I have come across their stuff, just kind of surfing around on the Japanese indie band part of the internet, but they're not a band I've been really paying any attention to. But I saw some bands on Twitter that I follow discussing this album, and so I thought I'd check it out, just see what all the hubbub was about. And plus, it's always good to keep an ear to the ground as to what's going on over there, follow new releases. And what I found was a indie band that dabbles in some post-punk and some math rock and some shoegaze and some psychedelica, as well as some more typical indie rock fare that, if not totally original, is pretty solid. This thing kicks off with the track Kaigan Enjo, which immediately starts with the pedal to the metal. There's some really intensely played drums that are really kind of busy, and a really dense bass line that seems to just be meandering wherever it feels like. The rhythm guitar is really kind of heavy and wide. It's really kind of drenched in reverb and some phaser, and really it just takes up a lot of room in the mix. The mix is very cluttered. And there's a high-pitched, tremolo-picked guitar line that adds some melody to the chaos. And in this intro bit, I kind of immediately notice a few things. First, this song is in the 5/4 time signature, with an emphasis on 2/3 polyrhythms at the beginning of each set of five, which gives this song a very kind of interesting, unique rhythmic texture. And two, they have the guitars panned to either ear for some reason. The rhythm guitar is in the left ear, and the lead guitar is in the right ear. And it's not a 100% hard pan. You can still hear like the lead guitar in the other ear or vice versa, but it's much quieter, and it's definitely a pretty significant pan on the guitars. And I don't really have much of an opinion on it. It just seems kind of odd, but it doesn't really hinder the song in any way. Now, after the very intense intro, things start to calm down a little bit when the vocals come in. We get some pretty flat male vocals that I'm not super crazy about. I just don't get a lot of emotional impact from his voice, and this is a complaint I kind of have throughout most of the album, though there are some notable exceptions. And in this calmer bit, you're given some time to breathe and some time to listen to a bit more of the detail in the instruments. The rhythm section is really kind of like bottled lightning on this calmer bit. There's a lot of tension and anticipation for when they can finally let loose again. And the guitars are really drenched in reverb and phasers and distortion, and they're really kind of fuzzy, and they kind of wash over the song as like a big kind of texture. The song ramps back up on the chorus to that same intensity it had at the beginning, and the shoegazy guitar solo that comes on the bridge is really spacey, but also incredibly intense and really textured. At the end of the song, I was feeling pretty good. I'm not super crazy about the vocals, but they're not really a big detractor for me either. They're okay. The next song, Shure Coquettes, starts off somewhat similarly with some big, intense, kind of distorted riffs. They do that same weird kind of panning on the ears, and this is where I start to realize that this is just a stylistic choice for the whole album. And indeed, that kind of hard-ish panning of the guitars is something that sticks through all the way to the end. This song does a lot of the same stuff that Kaigon Injo did. It's very kind of shoegazy and psychedelic. It's got a very thick texture. The production is very dense. But there are some really sick, intense jams on here. And we get one of the more notable vocal passages on here where he really kind of lets loose and just starts yelling. And I actually really like his like yelly, shouty vocals. They're really kind of strained and have a real kind of fire underneath them. But sadly, they just don't show up terribly much on the album. Track 3, Tempesi Cola, is the Taupes' attempt at doing the more typical Japanese post-punk stuff, kind of in the style of Otori. We get this really driving rhythm section with these somewhat kind of disjointed guitars that are not really playing with each other so much as playing on top of each other. And we get female vocals on this track. The female vocals aren't really anything to write home about either, but they don't really detract from the track, and I enjoy them well enough. And they do this style pretty good justice on this song. There's some really good kind of disjointed grooves that I think are essential to kind of pulling off this style. And they kind of bring it together into a more kind of accessible indie rock style by the end, but they don't really lose any of that kind of odd post-punky edge that they had more heavily in the beginning. There's some cool riffs on here where like the guitar is playing in unison with the drums, and they're playing these kind of odd rhythms over top of the vocals, and overall it just goes over really well. It's a really nice track. Another song I like a lot on here is the track Gorilla, 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 which starts off with these kind of tribal-ish driving kind of drums and a really cool kind of busy bass line that seems to be played pretty freely. The bass, for the most part, is kind of left free to do whatever it wants, and it really takes advantage of that. And as a result, the bass is one of the more interesting elements of these songs. It's always kind of meandering all over the place, and it's tight rhythmically and melodically, but it never just doubles the guitar part or anything like that. It's always just kind of doing its own thing. We get some more vacillation on this song between kind of calmer, more groove-focused verses and some really intense, kind of big choruses. But what I like most about this track is its kind of lack of a clear structure. The song seems to kind of wander around wherever it wants. It starts up this big psychedelic guitar solo in the middle that then ends and comes just completely into silence, and you kind of think the song's over, and then they just restart again back into the chorus. And in general, like the song's structure is somewhat unpredictable, but looking back on it, you can kind of see there's a bit more of a verse chorus, bridge chorus, verse chorus, just a bit of a change of a more typical pop song structure. But it makes the song really kind of interesting to listen to just because it's somewhat unpredictable. Plus, there are some really great just guitar jams and riffs on here, and the guitar solo is really good. And the dense, distorted production on here really adds to the whole kind of intensity of the track, and it goes over really well. And I've really liked all these tracks, at least somewhat. And we kind of have to stretch pretty deep into the track listing to track 8 in order to find a track that I finally don't like very much. The song is called Aoi Ao, which is all vowels, and my mouth does not like saying it. But sonically, the song is actually a pretty clean kind of indie rock track with a little bit of a ballad kind of feel to it. It's much cleaner sounding, it's much softer, it's much slower. It's pretty easygoing and kind of relaxed. But the song just isn't anything I haven't heard a million times before. It's kind of just this this kind of indie rock ballad that wouldn't feel too out of place on like a Baseball Bear album or something. If it had a bit more kind of high fidelity production, of course. And there's this big, just huge kind of wash of the rhythm guitar doing these chords with this big phaser on it that just it takes up so much real estate in the song and just like is so present, and it just doesn't sound very good. I find it to be just a little irritating when I'm listening to it. And the vocals again are fairly flat and meh on this track. But they show on the next track, Kurage Noise, that they can kind of do this softer, slower, more spacey feel in a bit more interesting way. This song has a very similar feel to the previous track in that it's kind of clean and slow and somewhat atmospheric. But the melody writing and just performances are just way more interesting on this song. There's this kind of distant, tremolo picked, distorted melody that is kind of drenched in reverb and sounds like it's being echoed from far away. That is really pretty and plays this nice kind of counterpoint with the vocal melody, which, while I'm still not crazy about the vocal delivery, is solid enough and makes for a really kind of pretty atmospheric track with a lot of kind of dynamic, kind of rising and falling tension in it. And then on the last track, Umareta Te no Kuni, the Taupe opts to kind of meet these two sides of their music in the middle, the kind of spacey, cleaner, more accessible, atmospheric side, and the more punky, raw, kind of distorted side. The song kicks off with this little spike of loud guitar feedback that then gives in to more clean guitars that have this kind of nostalgic quality to them. They remind me of something I might hear in like an old Bloodthirsty Butchers album. And you get this really nice kind of slow groove with, again, a really kind of free roaming, busy bass line that is just going all over the place. There are these really quiet, kind of serene moments. And then there are also these much louder, kind of more aggressive moments, like on the chorus. The song's not terribly original, but it's solid enough, and I think what saves this track from being kind of forgettable is just how good the performances are. Everyone is really on point on this song. The drums really kind of direct the flow of energy in this song as it kind of rises and falls very well. And the guitars make some really pretty melodies. You again get that kind of somewhat distant, distorted melody guitar that sounds really pretty over top of the kind of cleaner side of the rhythm guitar. And I am kind of indifferent on the vocal delivery again. I'm not really crazy about it, but it's not that bad. It doesn't detract from it. I just find it to be kind of mediocre. And that's the album. I really like a lot of what's going on here instrumentally, but I'm not a huge fan of the vocals. And also, it's just not terribly original. The sounds that appear on here and the kind of stylistic choices and references are all sounds that can be heard in numerous other bands, but the execution is on point, the production is good, and there's a lot of great performances on here. These are clearly talented musicians, and they really do these styles justice and do a lot of good with them. I'm feeling a 7.5 out of 10. I like this record for sure, but there are a couple tracks that underwhelm me a little bit. And I just wish there was a little bit more originality. If the album was just a bit less predictable, I think I'd enjoy this a lot more. But as it is, it's a pretty solid album. And if you're looking to add to your kind of collection of Japanese indie rock and post-punk and stuff, this is definitely a worthy addition. But that's me. New record by The Taupe. It's called Coelenterazine, and it's solid. I enjoy it, but it definitely has its flaws. Peace.